Hey everyone, welcome back to the other C word. I don't really know how to start this episode. I've actually tried to record this a couple times and couldn't get through it, but I'm going to try again and let's see how this goes. All right, this episode's a little bit different. It's not just a topic or something I've researched and want to share with you. It's a very personal aspect of my life. It's an aspect of my life that I'm still grieving to this day, and it's something I still don't have all the words for. Today, I want to talk about cancer and fertility, how one stole the other one from me. I want to talk about the impossible choices I had to make that really didn't feel like choices at all, about the grief that to this day has never really left me, about the guilt I still carry, not just for myself, but for my husband, for our future, for the family that we thought we were going to have. Because cancer didn't just take my health. It took my pregnancy, it took my fertility, it took my future as a mom. And to this day, I'm still trying to figure out how to live with that. So if you're listening in and if you've ever lost a child, if your body has taken choices from you, if you've ever wondered what comes next when the future you imagine disappears overnight, just know that I see you and I'm here for you and we're in this together. I hope this episode makes you feel a little bit less alone. And if you've never experienced a loss like this, I hope that you never do. But hopefully, this will give you some insight to help out someone who has gone through this. So, this all started when I was 3 months pregnant. I was in Texas when this all happened. My husband and I were visiting my family for my dad's 70th birthday, just days before we had told them that we were expecting. And then we'd been sitting around the kitchen table, brainstorming baby names. It was one of those perfectly sweet, simple moments that you don't realize at that time. But when you think back on it, you wish you could just freeze it and never leave it. We were throwing out names, laughing at the ones that sounded ridiculous, debating meanings, picturing who she would be. And then my husband and I heard one that we loved. It meant light. And that's exactly what she was to me, this tiny, bright little spark that had just started to exist. We had a potential name. This was real. We were going to be parents. And then just days later, everything changed. It started with awful, debilitating back pain. It was scream-inducing, terrible pain that I would never wish upon anyone. I waited a few hours, but when it was becoming clear that things were worsening, not getting better, I couldn't even take a single step. We had to call an ambulance and take me to the ER. The first thing I asked for was an ultrasound. I was in such horrific pain, but I just needed to know that my baby was okay. And she was. Her little heart was still beating. I saw it on the ultrasound machine, and I felt this huge sigh of relief. I was thinking, okay, she's okay. We're okay. Just need to figure out what this pain is. I had no idea that I wasn't okay at all. They actually discharged me from the ER because they couldn't give me strong pain meds because I was pregnant and couldn't scan me because I was pregnant. But I had this feeling and I said, I'm not leaving until I know what's causing this, and I pushed for a scan. Shortly after, a doctor came into the room and said, you have metastatic cancer. And then several days of full body scans and biopsies, they told me it's breast cancer you have and it's hormone driven and your pregnancy is fueling it. One second I was pregnant and planning for a future as a new mom. And the next I was being told I have terminal cancer and that I had to end my pregnancy to stay alive. That every day I continued to be pregnant, I was lighting the cancer on fire. How the hell do you even begin to process that? To make matters worse, as I said, I was in Texas, where you're not allowed to get an abortion, even if you need it to survive. Doctors were telling me, if you don't terminate this pregnancy immediately, you will die. It's just a matter of time. But the laws wouldn't let them give me an abortion. Even though my life was at risk, even though every doctor was telling me that my cancer was spreading every single day I was pregnant, even though I had to terminate my pregnancy to survive, they wouldn't let me. I wasn't allowed to do the one thing that would save my life. I asked, what are my other options? I asked all the questions numerous times, different ways to different doctors. The best answer I got was that if you stay pregnant, we can try to deliver the baby at 26 weeks, but we think by then the cancer will have spread too far, and it's likely that neither of you will make it. So I had to get discharged from the hospital and fly back to San Francisco in the middle of all of this chaos thrown at me just to do what I had to do to stay alive. It was so wild. Being told you have terminal cancer, that your pregnancy is feeding the cancer, that you must end it. But instead of getting the help you desperately need, you're being told to book a plane ticket. Every single second, my body was working against me. Every day, my hormones were accelerating, fueling the cancer, pushing it further into my body. They told us that it was only a matter of time before it spread to my vital organs, and then you know how the rest goes. So I got on that plane, terrified, already feeling that my body was breaking down further, feeling weaker each moment. But I didn't even make it to the procedure to end my pregnancy because by the time I landed in San Francisco, my spine had fractured in 3 different places. My back was already so weak from the cancer that it literally just broke. I was lying in a hospital bed, unable to move, screaming in pain, my body literally breaking apart, and my oncologist frantically urging me, we have to terminate your pregnancy now. We're running out of time. But we couldn't, not yet, because my body wasn't stable enough. So instead of going in for the abortion that I didn't want, I was being wheeled into surgery to have my spine reinforced with cement so it wouldn't further break, or worse, go into my spinal cord, which could have permanently disabled me. And all the while, continuously being told by doctors that my body is producing sky-high levels of estrogen, fueling the cancer even more. It was such a wild and crazy experience. And I remember just laying there and thinking, like, how is this my life right now? Like, how is this real? So after the spinal surgery and after I had stabilized, they were finally able to give me the abortion. I didn't have time to process any of it because within days of that, I was thrown into medically induced menopause and started aggressive, targeted cancer treatments. I went from being pregnant and dreaming about my baby to being told I was dying, to having my spine fractured in 3 places, to having an abortion I never wanted and never have been okay with, to being thrown into menopause overnight, to starting cancer treatment, all in the span of days. I didn't get to grieve. I didn't get to process. I didn't get to sit with the fact that I just lost my child because my body was being thrown from one trauma into the next. All right, I'm going to switch off this for a little bit and talk about the after effects this has had on me and my husband and my marriage. Since the day I met my husband, I knew how deeply he wanted to be a dad. He had lost his own father when he was 11 years old. And ever since then, being a father wasn't just something he wanted, it was something he longed for. It was his biggest goal in life. I knew that from the beginning, from day one. And then I became the one that took that from him. I took that dream away from him. I know people say, you can't think like that. You have to focus on yourself, your survival, your health. You didn't have a choice. But that's not how love works. Because when you love someone, what they want becomes your mission too. And I knew how much he wanted this, how much he wanted to be a dad. And in a single moment, it was gone. And I was the one that took that from him. Deep down, I know that this wasn't my fault. I know that I didn't choose this. I know that I fought hard for us and for our baby. But knowing that doesn't make it hurt any less. Because when I look at him, I see the pain in his eyes. And I know exactly what we both lost that day and forever. So a year after this happened, while I'm on these medically induced menopause treatments, my doctor's been telling me that they're not permanent. We're not doing any damage to your eggs. You know, we could possibly get to a point that we could retrieve eggs later on down the road. And so there was always that hope that I had that, you know, maybe this is just something temporary that I'm going through and that there would be another ending to this about getting some eggs out, being able to have a child. But it seemed like cancer had one more thing to take from me. I was actually going to lose my ovaries too, making it impossible to ever have my own biological child. I remember sitting in my oncologist's office thinking this was just a normal routine appointment. And then she said to me, your hormone levels are rising again. I sat there just staring at her, not fully understanding. I said to her, but I'm already in menopause. She said, Your body is still producing estrogen. We see this sometimes when patients are younger. Your body fights the hormone blockers. She said, your cancer is highly hormone driven and we have to remove your ovaries. Just like that. I had already lost my pregnancy, but at least before there was still a maybe, a small distant possibility that one day somehow I could have my own genetic child. But this surgery was going to take that away too. And so we scheduled it. I went into that operating room knowing that when I woke up, something inside me would be missing. When I opened my eyes, it was over. No more maybe someday. No more miracles. People say you can always adopt. There are other ways to become a mom, which I will say is a really annoying and insensitive thing to say to someone who lost their ability to have their own biological child. And yes, maybe, but can we just sit in the loss for a second? Because I didn't just lose getting to be pregnant and getting to carry my child. I lost the whole chance of ever being a mom to my own biological genetic child. I lost all of it. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be okay with that. So where does that leave us now? I've probably spent months, years at this point, researching both adoption and surrogacy. And to be completely honest, I am terrified. Both of these adoption and surrogacy agencies look at health records, and I've got stage 4 cancer. Will they even approve me? Will a birth mom even choose me? And same with surrogacy. Will someone want to carry a child for someone that has stage 4 cancer? Not to mention, all of this is insanely expensive and emotionally so complicated. It's such a roller coaster. And there's so many questions that go through my mind. Am I going to feel like this baby is mine if I get a donor egg and someone else carries the baby? Am I always going to feel like something's missing? And honestly, the biggest fear I have is that what if I go through all of this, either with adoption or surrogacy, fight for a child, and then I don't get to stay in this world? What if I bring them into the world only for them to grow up without me? Because that is sadly the reality of stage 4 cancer. I can fight like hell. I can do everything right, but I don't get guarantees. And I don't want to finally give my husband a child, make him a father, only for him to raise the child alone. These are the thoughts that keep me up at night. So I don't have a perfect ending to this episode. There's no resolution, but I know this, that if you've been through something like this, I want you to know that you're not alone. Some pain doesn't have answers, some grief doesn't fade, but we keep going because we're fighters and God has a plan for all of us. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to The Other C Word, hosted by Bismology. New episodes drop Mondays. Connect with me on socials at Bismology, and let's all learn, grow, and inspire each other.